Restorative dialogue is one of the tools of restorative storytelling that takes two other tools, story listening and open response, and uses them together dialogically. So the word dialogue, I think, is interesting because people often think that the dia part means two people talking about something. But it's actually through. Dia is the Greek word for through. So the idea is that you talk through something. And Martin Buber, who really was the one that got this kind of conversation going around what's dialogue and what do we use it for, says that we have the I, thou, me, you, and then we become an essential we. What that means is that we narrow it down so that we are talking through something together for a common purpose. So it doesn't always have to be, problem solving or what have you, but dialogue is often used that way. Sustaining dialogue is used within the context of diplomacy. Working dialogue is used in the prison system in order to find, to make prisons work better. And then, the thing that has impressed and inspired and changed restorative dialogue the most is probably open dialogue, which is within the mental health field, comes out of Finland. And the idea is that you gather people around the person who is having a psychological event or a psychotic event, and we all talk together towards the common aim of supporting this individual through the event and then after. And verbal information, nonverbal information, all of it is relevant. So this is the breakdown of restorative dialogue, is that first we hone our skills of attending or listening. And that's the story listening tool. We do that through 4 directions. Instead of it being all about the content, which I consider forward, instead of just listening to what is being said and responding to the content of it, this is what we're taught in school, is when people say listen to me, they often mean listen to what I'm saying so that you can remember it and then, retrieve it and respond in kind. Airplane going by. But there's 3 other directions that you can use. There's probably, many more, but this is just how the story listening tool is used, is that when we're up, we're in the periphery. So you see me doing that, attending, watching where my attention goes in the periphery, and taking in that information. Down into the somatic, what's my body doing? How am I responding to my environment or my thoughts or the conversation with my body? How's it feel? Where's the discomfort? Where's the flow? Just being curious about that. And then back is the most interesting because it's kind of outside of time and space, because we wait there. It's a still place that notices the emergent when something shifts, and there's often a signal. We get flushed. The hair on our arms raises up. We feel this whoa, and it doesn't always correlate with something conscious. In fact, usually it doesn't. So I'm going to go back to a thing that I'll often say in these videos, which is that we take in massive amounts of information every second. It's often quoted the 11 million mark. 11 million bits of information every second coming in. Almost all of that goes into the subconscious. And I include the body as a receptacle of the subconscious. Only 30 or 40 bits of information are conscious in every second. So most of the information we take in about our environment is subconscious. So how do we access that? We access that through the body and through our subconscious control over our attention. So that's the periphery, the somatic, and then we get these signals that tell us this is important, even if it doesn't line up with rational thought, with our thought of like, well, wait, we're talking about moving to a new town. What does that have to do with a dandelion? Well, we don't interrogate that. We, in a storytelling world, we invite it in. This is the world of dreams. So we don't sit there in the middle of a dream and try to make sense of it. When we go with it, and then afterwards we can make sense of it. But usually the effect of restorative dialogue, and for that matter all of restorative storytelling, is to create a connection, not to create an understanding. You can create an understanding, but the point is the connection. And oftentimes, I find, the connections that are made are not done because we've come to an understanding. It's something else. It's a being seen, it's a being heard, it's about finding a common ground, it's gathering around an image that we intuited together and found something, even if we consciously disagree about everything else. So story listening is taking it in, open response is responding to it. And this is where it's good to get a sort of an agreement on how this conversation is going to go, because restorative dialogue has a lot of interrupting. Because when something important happens, we often dismiss it as either irrelevant or the timing's not good. Somebody says something and you have a response to it, but then you know, they're still in the middle of talking and describing this particular dynamic or what have you, but you're waiting. You have this thing that just happened to you that feels really important, even if it doesn't fit consciously with what they're talking about. So with restorative, with open response, you say, hold on, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this just happened. Now, that might seem rude, but the times in which I've used this, and I do it a lot, people are often dazzled that that's actually what they wanted to talk about, or that's a great insight, or whatever it is. But it's more so that you have picked up something subtle, you have intuited something, and you're responding to that, and you have encouraged them to let go of their argument, or all their things that they've planned together, and have actually found what's underneath the issue or the topic that they're bringing. And we can cut right to it. So restorative dialogue, using story listening and open response, lands you at something more foundational and true and authentic faster, if you are willing to pay attention to the periphery and the body, respond to it in the moment, recognize that when there are signals it is worth interrupting, and then being willing to be the recipient of that as well. So step one, contain the dialogue. In other words, let's both be clear that we're in the same story, we're doing the same thing, that it's okay to interrupt, that it's okay to respond to something by telling the other person where our attention went, by saying that we can always talk about how our body feels right now, because it may get us quicker. The thinking through may arrive us at the intention faster. So make sure we're all in the same story, contain it. Then both agree to use story listening tools and open response. And then just go for it. See where it goes. It may scatter out pretty quickly, but in my experience, I have found that we come back, and often much quicker, to something very real, very relevant, foundational, transformative. It is the we, and it is the essential we that we have found by talking through something together. There's more about this. There's a book about it. You can find it through the links, and you can find written versions of this, a variety of different ways in which I'm expressing these tools. So just follow the links and I'll see you around.